We're going to be ranking every single killer from the best to the worst, and it's gonna be pretty good. Let's jump into it. Kings and queens, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. It is time to make our 2022 tier list. This is a little bit different from the type of videos that we normally make. We typically stick to news, as you know, but I thought I'd toss my hat back into the ring and give you guys my updated tier list. Every weekend, we're going to be doing some unique videos like this, just having some fun or creative videos or opinion-based videos, so I hope you guys do enjoy. So a couple of base rules I want to talk about this tier list. Number one, this is subjective. This is an opinion. There is no right or wrong when it comes down to a tier list. This is my personal view. You can agree or disagree. I'd love to hear everything that you think about in the comments down below. So I'm going to be talking about your favorite killers here, and yes, you can get 4Ks with them. Yes, you can perform well with them, but this is just my opinion and how I see them. On top of that, we're not going to focus on any perks or solely focusing on the killer. We are also going to be talking about add-ons, but the typical add-ons you would normally see when playing against this killer. We're not going to look at the best of the best or the worst of the worst, but the average that most of these killers might run. Obviously subjective depending on what games you're playing, but we're going to go by what people typically use. And on top of that, we are going to look at if you play these killers to the maximum potential, not how well I personally play the killers, but how well you can possibly play the killers. So those are the rules that we are pretty much going to be going by, and I would love to hear what you guys have to say in the comments down below. And before we jump on into this video, I want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Ewin Racing. So as you guys know, Ewin has gifted us a brand new gaming desk, and it has been absolutely amazing. It is fully carbon fiber, so it is one of the best desks that I've ever had. It is a beautiful size, so you can store pretty much everything you need on top of it. Not to mention it has LED lights running along the sides, and it synchronizes with your music. It also conveniently comes with a headphone stand on the left hand side and a cup holder on the right hand side, making everything nice and convenient. And it has some really good wire management as well. Ewin also makes some gaming chairs, and we've been using theirs for a very long time. So if you are interested, make sure you check them out in the link in the description and use our code for a awesome discount. Alrighty, now that we have spoken about our sponsor, get your drinks, get your food, get your snacks, get everything that you need, strap in. We're going to be here for a little bit. It's time to talk about these killers. We're going to start off with the main boy himself, the Trapper. So I am a Trapper main, but I have to be unbiased when it comes down to ranking everything. Now, he does have some good things. For starters, you can really catch survivors off guard if you place your traps very tactically. This will make them paranoid when going around specific loops or vaulting any windows, and especially at higher ranks where people are so accustomed to looping, when they go into specific areas, you can easily catch them off guard. On top of this, you can also use your traps to be very blunt, and if you manage to get some survivors in the basement, you can even lock down the basement or certain tiles or areas to make sure that your power works. Especially towards the later game, if you manage to get a 3-gen strat, it becomes very nasty to go against this killer because there, quite frankly, isn't much you can do when there's constant pressure of him trying to chase you. If you're running through a chase and you notice a trap, you either have two options, which is go through the trap with dead hard or completely avoid it. You can also drop the pallet in certain situations, but a smart trapper won't place their trap directly in the pallet, but you can also waste some pallets that way. You can put these at potentially really strong loops like the Killer Shack and completely avoid it and make survivors go far away from it or manage to catch them. And that is pretty much all the upside to the Trapper. The downfall when it comes to the Trapper is that his power, number one, can be deactivated. He is one of the few killers that this can actually happen to, but it still happens. With all of the changes that they've made, giving him 2 base traps, which is something we've wanted for a very long time, and some really interesting add-ons that he does have, he still falls short in that sense. Survivors can easily sniff out where all of his traps are, disable them, and that process pretty much continues. With lacking map pressure as well and just being a standard M1 115 killer besides his traps, it really doesn't get the job done. Now, when it really boils down to it, that is pretty much the Trapper in the nutshell. He has no map pressure whatsoever. All his traps don't really help him in chases unless one of your traps is in the precise location that the survivors are going to run to, and even then your traps can be disabled. If you manage to get someone on the hook or someone around or all the gens in one location, you could have a little bit of a fighting chance, but all in all, when it really boils down to it, a coordinated team will take the Trapper down very easily, and sadly, that is going to make him one of the worst killers on the list. putting him all the way in the D tier. Now, there are ways that they could make Trapper better. One of the things that I spoke about was if there's a 10% chance that if you disable a trap, you do become injured. We spoke for a long time about giving him more trap space, and we finally did receive something like that and some cool add-ons to start the trial with all of your traps, etc. I think something like that, buffing up his base kit, could negate survivors just all willy-nilly disabling traps, and it could help his power become a little bit better. But until that day comes, he is in the D tier. The next killer on the list is the Wraith, the second killer to be in the game, and the Wraith isn't terribly bad as the Trapper is. He's actually a little bit better in my opinion. First of all, when you spawn into the trial, you pretty much have the ability essentially to make yourself unknown. No survivor is going to know what the killer is until they get sights on you or they hear your bell. You can also use add-ons to completely even negate that and potentially get some really good hits. This carries out throughout the trial if you have some good add-ons, and even if survivors are aware it's you. And if you have some good offerings like the ones that make your bell, map wide, survivors will be second guessing themselves all the time, and you could potentially get some really good sneaky hits on them. On top of this, you can go invisible and play different styles of the Wraith where you move a little bit faster while invisible to catch up and keep some map pressure going. So already a little bit better than the Trapper in that sense, and in certain situations, this can go down pretty well. With the speed boost of uncloaking as well, you can sometimes cut off loops or catch up to a survivor really quickly and get a nice hit if they are trying to loop you. Now, that's pretty much where all of the pros of the Wraith stops. Once the survivors are well aware that you are the Wraith, they're going to be keeping eyes out to make sure they know where you're coming from. If they see you coming from a distance because of your cloaking, they'll get ready to run to a vault or a pallet or a loop, whatever the case may be, to get ready for that chase to be initiated. On top of that, you can also burn the Wraith in very rare situations with flashlights, and that completely negates him as well. And if you are aware that the Wraith is always around, it's very difficult for him to get some sneak attacks on you. Now that is pretty much it for the Wraith. He's a very basic standardized killer that hasn't really received too much love. There are some really good add-ons that you can use on him, as I mentioned, and typically you're going to see some nice add-ons that make his power feel a lot more smooth. For that reason, we're going to put him in the C tier. He's not all the worst. You can't disable his power like the Trapper, and he does have extra mobility that can be used. However, again, when it boils down to it, he is still just a standardized M1 killer when you're going around loops and things like that. So in that sense, it knocks him down to the C tier, but all in all, he can be pretty fun. He is pretty awesome, and he will always have a special place in my heart personally. The Hillbilly is next, the final trio of the original killers, and Hillbilly is honestly one of the better killers out of the three. In fact, he's the best one out of the three. He has some awesome mobility that you can use on specific maps. If you are in an open field and, the Hillbilly's right there chasing a survivor, you can easily get an insta down with his chainsaw, making him way stronger than the other two killers, Trapper and Wraith, that we spoke about. On top of that, you can get some wicked curves if you are playing precisely, and you can cut corners very well. Obviously, now with the overheat mechanic, it is a lot more difficult to do things like this. I'm still not sure why that overheat mechanic was ever brought into the game. I think it was unnecessary, and with that patch also brought in a lot of changes to his add-ons that realistically boils down maybe 4 of them that are really good. We have the engravings, obviously, and the Lopro chains, and I believe like the Mother's Helpers are alright. Those are the only good, decent add-ons that we have for the Hillbilly. Besides that, he's just your regular strong-ish killer. In this day and age, he's dropped down a lot from where he used to be. Back in the days, Hillbilly used to be one of the best killers, and people used to argue if Hillbilly or Oni were better. I believe that it's very apparent now that the Oni really stands above the Hillbilly, where in a lot of the maps, you can't really get your chainsaw to go off and to get a survivor down. On top of that, with the overheating mechanic, it is a pain sometimes, but not too much since some of these changes are in there. You can't do what you normally do as old school Hillbilly, but it's still not super taxing, but it's a thing that's there. And if a survivor is looping quite well, or they get to a vault, your power is pretty much negated because of the time it takes to rev up the chainsaw and get it ready to work. So you pretty much have to catch a survivor in the open in order to get them down, and sometimes survivors can easily run left or right and avoid the attack and make it to a safe pallet or safe vault, and then it's just really frustrating. If you do play your cards correctly, you will easily get these downs and you can quickly go across the map. But again, this is map dependent because it's not as forgiving as some of the other killers that have high mobility. You pretty much have to go in a straight line, or else you'll have to just reuse your power, which then adds the overheat mechanic, etc. Now, he is pretty well balanced all around. I miss seeing some of the Hillbilly players, and I understand why they're no longer playing Hillbilly anymore, and for that reason, we are going to put him in the B tier. I think Hillbilly is one of those more balanced killers that you see in the game. They have everything in their base kit that pretty much makes them a decent killer. They have high mobility. Those players also have the option to down survivors in a one-hit capacity. And with some of the right add-ons, he can be a little bit better, Lopro Chains being my personal favorite. I think Hillbilly deserves to be in the B tier. Some folks might rate him a little bit higher or lower. I think he's well balanced the way he is now, and he definitely doesn't stick out as a really good killer, and I don't think he deserves to be somewhere like where the Wraith or the Trapper is because of his kit. Moving on to the next killer on the list, it's the Nurse, and there should be no debate. The Nurse is the strongest killer in the game. Nurse pretty much destroys all of the fundamentals that survivors have. You know, as a survivor, the number one way to avoid your killer is to loop them. You know, loop your tiles, go through pallets, you know, stun the killer, vault, etc. Nurse just says screw that and completely negates it by being able to teleport through walls and go through vaults, go through pallets. There is very little that a survivor can do against a very good Nurse. On top of that, she also can teleport twice and keep the map pressure up, and with the right add-ons, it just enhances her power so much. It's universally accepted almost that some of her add-ons are just super good on her no matter who's playing, those being the ones that decrease the fatigue, etc. It just makes Nurse stand out. And if you play Nurse to her full capacity, which a very finite amount of the community does, to be honest, she is just unstoppable. There isn't much that you can do against a very good Nurse. She has the map pressure, there isn't much that you can do, and that alone outweighs all of her other cons that are there. And mainly the cons that you do have for the Nurse is based upon your own skill. If you can't perform well as the Nurse, or if sometimes the survivor may dodge your attack at the last second, those are the only things that will really make her less appealing. But even so, she is just powerful and dominant. Now, she does have a high ceiling, but it makes sense being the strongest killer in the game, and once you master her, it is very difficult to beat her. I think this one should go without saying that Nurse is in the S tier, the strongest killer on the list, and I honestly don't think there should be any argument about it, but to each their own. Alrighty, moving on, we have the Huntress. Now, Huntress is pretty damn awesome, always has been awesome. There was a point in time where I said the Huntress was weaker than the Deathslinger, and I regret that. I do regret that. Huntress is still one of the more powerful killers in the game. With her hatchet ability, it is phenomenal to not only zone survivors, but to hit survivors during loops and to easily injure them. And then if you are pretty accurate and they run into an open space, or even if they run to another loop, you still can quickly get the down on them. With all the changes that they have introduced to Huntress throughout the year, she still stands the test of time, being one of the more powerful killers in the game. Now, the only cons I can really put against the Huntress is her 110 movement speed. She doesn't really have the ability to run across the map such as some of the other killers on the list, but she does have hatchets, and if you are fairly accurate, you might be able to get some really far shots on people. She also has great pressure when it comes down to people on the hook. You can be miles away and easily fish hook them essentially and shoot your hatchets and get people injured, and this also stops their action and you can easily get them down, swap places, whatever the case may be. You can also pull some very sneaky shots if you know how to loop properly, backtracking or moonwalking and then getting shots on people, notably in killer shacks or specific tiles. The only downsides to Huntress, as I mentioned, is that she doesn't have the best mobility. She is a 110 killer, so getting across the map can be an inconvenience on certain situations. On top of that, you also have to reload during your chases, only having 5 hatchets as is. And of course, if you are sometimes playing bad and the survivor decides to bait you into pulling up your hatchet and winding it up while they're looping a tile, and you decide to do it and they continue to run without dropping a pallet, you basically waste your time, and that can be a little bit of annoyance, but that is more so on the player and on you to use your own judgment. Besides that, Huntress has phenomenal pressure when it comes down to loops. She has amazing zoning abilities, forcing you in certain situations, and she can easily have some amazing basement pressure if you decide to put survivors in basement. For me, I would say Huntress is still on the A side. She is the embodiment of a good killer. She has a little bit of a skill cap. If you're accurate with her hatchets, you'll be doing pretty well. And I just can't really knock her too much. With some of the add-ons that she also has, it makes her hatchets even more powerful and fun to play as and against. And for me, Huntress belongs in the A tier. Myers is next on the list, and while this guy may be very scary in the movies, in the game, I honestly can't say the same. Myers is a decent killer all around, but when really boiled down, he's just a M1 killer with a little bit of spice dropped into him. Upon spawning in as a killer, your power is simply not as good as it can be. You have to tear up, and that in itself could be a little bit of a challenge. And once you do that, everybody knows who you are, so that element of stealth that you may have had is completely gone. You can try to get somebody while, you know, you're in tier 1 and try to pull them off a generator or get a surprise hit on them, but then after that, you're kind of forced to level up, and once you do that, you have to basically work to become a normal killer like the Trapper or the Wraith, etc. And then you still have to, in most cases, let the survivors be passive, essentially, or try to sneak up on survivors, which really doesn't work. Once they know that you're that killer, they're going to be always paying attention. So for you to level up your power, you basically have to give up chase time, which survivors would easily just run away out of your line of sight, or to a ballot, or to a vault, etc. And then once you're finally in tier 3, it's just the one-hit ability. Now, if survivors are uncoordinated or someone is too altruistic, you can get multiple downs during this time, and combining it with some cool perks, which we won't get too much into, but something like Infectious Strike could give you some more information, and you could potentially knock down some more survivors, but then it resets after the 60 seconds, and you have to pretty much do it all over again. If you run into a good survivor as well that utilizes their tiles very well, that 60 seconds might be completely done. You might even get the down, but by the time that happens, it's like 30-40 seconds into the chase, and then your power is completely negated. Not to mention that if you stalk a survivor too long, you can't gain your power anymore, which really sucks. So that way you're kind of limited in how many times you can actually use your power, and then it just boils down to a regular M1 killer that just gives up more time and space to the survivors because they need to charge their power back up. For that reason, Myers is going to be in the C tier. He's not in the D tier with like the likes of Trapper because he still has that one-shot ability, but I still don't think he's better than any of the other killers on this list that are in his tier or above or below. He's just an alright killer. He seems like an M1 killer with extra steps, essentially, to make him a little bit stronger, but only for a short window, and that short window really doesn't have that much benefit. Now, of course, you can use some crazy add-ons that charge up his power way faster, and that's typically what you're going to see, or you can even use his absolutely cracked ultra rare add-ons, which require a lot more stock but pretty much guarantees you to murder people or be in tier 3 forever. But I still would put him in the C tier personally. I just don't see a lot of good coming out of him, and I think he's easily beatable with the right players. Next on the list is the Hag. I feel like the Hag is one of those killers that is really slept on. I feel like people look at the Hag and they think that this killer isn't as good as she really is, and Hag is absolutely beautiful. Now, I'll start off with the Hag with one of the things that I think pulls back from her but really doesn't make that much of a difference. Like, I wouldn't want this to be changed, but I think this is just where the slow start may come in from being a 110 killer. You know, you have to get somebody down to really get her power going, because once survivors know that you're a Hag, they're aware that your traps are going to be around. If you place these traps very tactically and you are chasing survivors, you can easily get them down. You can even pull off some fabulous mind games on them, whether you teleport to your trap or not. Sometimes they can run back into you if you decide not to do it, etc. It's just very beautiful. With some of the add-ons that she has as well, it could just make her absolutely go on a killing spree, specifically Rusty Shackles. And combining this with even like her ultra rares just makes her completely unstoppable. Rusty Shackles is just one of those really insane add-ons that you have for her. Even at base kit, just Hag alone, she is super duper strong. As soon as you get somebody down, you can easily put them on a hook, put maybe 3 or 4 traps in the relative location, forcing the survivors either to crouch walk, and as soon as they pull them off, if they continue to crouch walk, you can easily make up the distance and get back there. Then they'll be in a panic. You teleport to your trap once they start running, easily get a hit on somebody and carry on. Or if they decide just to run in, you can easily grab them or get a free hit on them, interrupting their action. Hag is one of those killers that is just phenomenal. She cuts off loops so easily at any given time, and during your chase you can also do this. Not to mention she does have map pressure. You can place her traps down by generators, and as soon as someone is on the generator you can teleport to it. Even if you're in a relative distance and then survivors hear that you're coming, they get up to run or they slowly crouch walk out, you'll still be able to make up with the due time. Hag for me is an A-tier killer. With some of the add-ons, like she could even be S. I wouldn't put her as high just because I feel like that deserves some other better killers in their own rights, but Hag is definitely up there, and I feel like she's slept on quite a lot, and people don't really give it a respect that I feel like she deserves. But Hag is just beautiful, and I absolutely love the Hag, and I just don't play her enough personally myself, but she's just so fun and so beautiful. Next on the list is the Doctor, and Doctor is one of those killers that I always get frustrated playing against, and I think that's what most people feel. And even when you're playing as the Doctor, you can get pretty frustrated. Doctor has some really good one-on-one chases, having the ability to shock a survivor, stopping them from going to a pallet or a loop. However, if you're playing against someone with terrible latency, or people that are dropping pallets early or trying to just dodge your shocks with basic maneuvers, it can become a little bit of a pain, and then it could still continue to run to a loop. Doctor was never one of my favorites and probably never will be one of my favorites. Some of the add-ons like High Simulus make it a little bit better, but that takes up more charge time, and by the time you get the shock going, they're probably by the vault or by the window. You have to use some predictability, and even then, if the survivor again does basic maneuvers, they can completely negate your power. So in certain situations it can work if you get the shot going prior and you can get the hit on them. It does work quite well in situations like that. Some of the add-ons also do make his power a little bit better. We also have the big static blast that gives you information that is phenomenal, and if survivors are in tier 3 they have to snap out of it in order to work on generators, giving you some more time to catch up to them. But besides that, that is pretty much Doctor in a nutshell. He does then become a M1 killer that you can easily loop. He doesn't necessarily have insane map pressure where he can just bolt across the map and, you know, make sure survivors aren't working on generators. You also can get some information when survivors are hallucinating and seeing you, so you know where they're at. But even then, his power really doesn't help you that much in a chase. It has good one-on-one potential, you know, if you're chasing a survivor to force them out of certain loops or to get the hit a little bit earlier. But then besides that, you're pretty much an M1 killer, as I say, with extra steps. It's better than someone like Myers, who, you know, doesn't have their full maximum potential, but not as good as someone as the Huntress or Hag or anybody above there. So for that reason, we're going to be putting the Doctor on the C tier. I think Doctor can use some improvements in the future, but it's just one of those killers that, in my opinion, didn't stand the test of time. Their power can be negated by survivors that are well coordinated, and then their power, in my opinion, is just not as good as some of the other killers, and survivors can easily outmaneuver you. In certain situations, it could work for your one-on-one chases, but then after that, that's pretty much it. Of course, there's more to the Doctor than as I'm making it. I'm just trying to wrap it up, but in my opinion, Doctor is in the C tier. I could see him potentially being in the B tier if, you know, all things go your way during the match, but for me, he's sadly in the C tier. The boy Leatherface is next on the list, and I am a fan of Bubba. Bubba is one of those killers that I always thought had really good potential to do better, and when they gave him his buffs, he did become a lot better than he was. He has his very beautiful M2 ability with 3 charges that can easily get survivors down or force them to drop pallets, and you can just eat pallets throughout the match. And then, of course, if survivors are going to vaults or they're looping you at the killer shack or something like that, if you're using the right add-on such as some of the engravings or anything along the lines of that, you can knock them down pretty easily. On top of that, he is a beautiful defensive killer. If someone is on the hook or in the basement, there's pretty much nothing survivors can do if you decide to just stick around. And if they do go trying to get the save, you can easily get both of those survivors down, even if they pull them off and they have borrowed time. So in that sense, he's pretty good. Besides that though, if you are chasing survivors, they're typically in their standard loops and, you know, you're going to have to eat through those pallets. And if they manage to get to the vault and you choose the M1, and if you miss and you don't get it, or if you do get it, they'll just continue to run into another loop, and then your power is kind of negated in that sense. His power is also not as easy as you may think it is, you know, using your chainsaw, and if survivors are in very tight loops, you might have to go a little bit wider in certain situations, or you will be penalized if you run into the wall, and then that just gives the survivors a huge leverage, especially like if you're using your chainsaw and you think you can get them and they go through the vault and you don't get them, then you're penalized for that, giving the survivors a lot more time. On top of that, he doesn't really have that much map pressure when it comes down to it. He isn't like any of the other killers that can, like the nurse, teleport across the map, etc. He's just your standard 115 killer that moves around, that is a little bit more buffed up and has that ability to knock survivors down. With some of the add-ons, as I said, he can be a little bit better and it makes his power a little bit better, but that's about it. So for me, I'm going to have to put him in the B tier. I think he's more low-end B tier as well. While his power is still pretty good and you can, you know, get multiple hits on survivors and things like that, break pallets, when it boils down to it, he just has good one-on-one chase and he's a good defensive killer. But besides that, that is pretty much all that I see Bubba for. He doesn't really have too much potential when it comes down to map pressure, and then there's still good loops and vaults that completely negate his power. So for that reason, he is in the B tier and the low end of the B tier. Mr. Freddy is next on the list, and back in the days, Freddy used to be one of those killers that was completely terrible. We used to say that Freddy was the only F-tier killer. They then buffed him up, and Freddy became one of the best killers in the game. The statistics even prove this, showing that he was well ahead of all the other killers, and because of this, the developers decided to completely change his kit, and now he is nowhere near where he used to be. Freddy used to be one of those killers that people used to hate going against, so I'm happy in that sense that they made some changes to him, but now there really is no good reasoning to play him. If you're deciding to use your snares or even your dream pallets, this makes you a lot slower, and it gives you the potential to catch up with survivors or to get them to slow vault or drop a pallet slowly, or vault, I should say, slowly, things like that. But it's just not worth it. Before, you used to be able to just put these in chases and it would help you along in your chases. Now survivors can avoid this if they're awake, number one. Number two, if they do see this, they'll just completely avoid the loop and go to some different place, and then that pretty much leaves you with your only other power, which is teleporting to generators, which has a cooldown, and you can have some pressure by deciding to fake teleporting or actually teleporting to keep an eye on the generators, but then that is pretty much it. You just have good map mobility. Your power doesn't really help you in chases. The pallets are nice gimmicks to start off with if you are using those. They work a little bit better late game, but once survivors know, it's quite easy to keep track of what pallets are dropped or not, unless the team is very uncoordinated, and then in that sense, any killer would beat an uncoordinated team. When it comes down to his dream snares, on the other hand, using them in chase is not ideal, so you kind of have to just set them and leave them, and if you are going to set traps to leave them, instead of making them slow, you would want to have a little bit more upside, and that's where killers like the Hag just really tower over someone like Freddy, so they're just not to that potential. He's not there. And for that reason, I'm sadly going to have to put Freddy in the C tier. It's sad because Freddy used to be one of the fun killers to play, and just dropping those pallets, dropping those snares, and seeing the reactions of survivors. And sadly, we no longer have that Freddy in the game. And sadly, we don't have that Freddy in the game anymore. And I do miss him. And hopefully one day we can get him back. So for that reason, Freddy is going to be in the C tier to me. I definitely see potential with him. The add-ons that he has really are meh, in my opinion. I don't really see any add-ons that are really good to use, and when it boils down to it, you're just chasing survivors that avoid loops that you place snares at, and that's pretty much it. The Pig is next on the list, and there is another licensed killer that really doesn't do anything. Pig is one of those killers that we've been asking for such a long time just to be buffed up. Even an add-on overhaul would make this killer so much better. Let's talk about the Pig. So Pig is your standard M1 killer. She moves at 115, she walks around. If she does manage to get somebody down after your long extensive chases, you can place a trap on that player's head. This will pretty much stop them from doing anything. If the trap is ticking down and they have to go to different boxes, you can use add-ons to get multiple boxes, more or even less. And then they have to basically get the trap off their head, which buys you a little bit of time, but realistically, not really, because RNG is never in your favor. So it's something that's just like, oh yeah, I just gotta get this off. It's no sense of doom coming to you. So that just completely gets rid of that power. Now there's some add-ons that could make it a little bit better, like slow toxin release and the one that gives you blindness. I don't remember the name at the top of my head right now, but even then you can easily get rid of this trap and then those add-ons are completely negated. The next part of her power is her ambush, and while this can get you some good hits to survivors that aren't paying too close attention, and you can fake them out, go the other way and get some nice hits on them, once the survivor hears that big loud roar, all they need to do is to get out of that pallet loop. Get out of that loop and you'll be completely fine. The Pig can't really do anything to you. She'll just make her loud roar and she wouldn't be able to catch you. Even with some of the add-ons that she has with longer dashes and combat straps to make her crouch up and down quicker, there isn't too much that you can do. This also completely negates your stealth ability. As you know, when you're crouching and walking, moving slower, but you are stealthy, so you could get a hit on someone on the generator. But no, she has the big loud roar. And if anyone has sprint burst or just runs to a pallet where most generators are, your power is completely done. So then when it comes down to it, she has no really good way of chase potential, making her better in chases. She has no mobility to help her. And the only thing that does kind of work if survivors are, not being the smartest and they're not dropping pallets prematurely, or they're not leaving their loops and you could get the hit on them, or if the hat in some rare occasion gives the survivor terrible RNG and they waste all of their time trying to get it off, which never really happens, making the Pig one of the weaker killers in the game. We're going to put her in the D tier, even below the Trapper. It's sad to see because she is a licensed character and I would love to see some of the licensed characters be buffed up, but sadly she is in the D tier. That takes us to our next killer, the Clown. Now Clown has received buffs from where he used to be. He now has his yellow bottles or his piss bottles. That makes him a little bit faster. If you toss him down, you walk through it, you get invigorated, you can move a little bit faster, and combined with some decent add-ons, you can get some information like the cigar box, etc. But that is pretty much it. That little buff that he does have isn't enough to push him above, and then it leaves you with the standardized Clown, which is the Clown that tosses bottles. If you run into them, you get a little bit slower. You can easily just drop the pallet prematurely and there's nothing that he can really do, or just leave the loop if you figure he's going to be dropping a bottle. It is a little bit annoying to see your screen go all foggy and go all wonky when you're intoxicated, but that is pretty much it. That's all that Kenneth has to offer. He isn't really that good. No extra mobility buffs besides the yellow bottles that really don't do anything. I mean, like, in rare cases, you can drop a yellow bottle in a loop and sometimes maybe catch up to a survivor during that loop and hit them. But even then, it's such a small payoff with so much that you have to do. Then you have to reload your bottles, and that takes a while as well. So it's only convenient to do this when you down a survivor or you hook a survivor. It's good to throw these more so when you're hooking somebody and you want to like quickly move up a little bit faster, and some of the add-ons make him a little bit better, but realistically there isn't much there to help the Clown whatsoever. His bottles kind of help him in chases at some times, but that is pretty much it. Again, he's just a standard M1 killer with a different type of power. This was DBD's first attempt at trying to counter looping, and it doesn't really do a good job. And in 2022, it's just so bad. The Clown needs some love. He is at the D tier in the bottom with the Trapper and the Pig, sadly. He's just not that good. Case closed. That brings us to the Spirit. We're going literally on the opposite side of the spectrum now. Spirit is one of the best killers in the game. Some folks even argue that she is the best killer in the game. She has everything that a good killer needs. For one, she has the potential to cut down your chases very quickly. This is probably the best thing that you can do. Basically, using your power, survivors have to guess where you're coming from, and even though they made it so that it's a little bit better for survivors to kind of listen, with her detection being from different angles now, directional I should say, her phasing noises, there still is very little you could do. It's such a tiny thing that survivors have to really listen to, that by the time you have enough time and energy to react, you will make a mistake and she'll smack you down. For playing Spirit at any loop, she can easily get rid of the survivor. She can literally just stand still to this day and completely negate a loop, you know, because survivors are going to be second guessing themselves on what she is doing. And if you just stand still and, you know, gauge what a survivor's doing, typically they just walk back and forth. You easily come out of your teleport, or your phase I should say, and smack them down. On top of that, she does have crazy good map pressure as well, considering she can phase and she moves faster. Some of these add-ons make that even more deadly, and the add-ons just buff her up to another level as well. She is just absolutely insane when it comes down to it. So she has fantastic chase potential. She has fantastic map potential getting around essentially, and it's very difficult for survivors to know what she's doing. For that reason, Spirit is in the S tier with the nurse. I typically don't put her up there, but I feel like more so now, a lot of people that are playing Spirit aren't the ones that are relying on the add-ons like back in the days, but more so just really good Spirit players, and it shows really the potential of how good this killer is if you know how to play her. There isn't much you can do on the survivor side, considering, like I said, you can stand still to negate loops, and then she still has that phenomenal map mobility that you can utilize. Spirit is in the S tier. I don't think there's much debate about it. She is one of the best killers in the game. And speaking of best killers, this killer is not. Nowhere near, and probably never will be. Hopefully, maybe one day, but I don't see it happening. And that's the Legion. Legion is one of those killers that I absolutely despise, and that's why I am the voice for the Legion for Illumi's animations. That's the only reason why I like the Legion. Legion is one of those killers that really can't do much. Spawning into the trial, you can use your Feral Frenzy to hit a survivor that you see. You'll then be notified where the other survivors are at if they're in your range, and typically survivors are never that grouped up unless they're working on a generator. In cases like that, if they are grouped up, you can slash a few survivors, putting them into the mending state, and then you have to basically get rid of your power, or don't get rid of your power, try to chase someone, and if they just simply go to a vault or a loop, you are done. You won't be able to hit them. If you do manage to hit them, you then have to get out of your power, become an M1 killer, and then continue to chase. By the time that happens, most folks are going to mend and then do what they were doing. Nobody really heals against Legion, because why would you? This is a mistake in certain situations if you have the right add-ons, etc. But if you don't, people are just going to work on generators, because then you're just an M1 killer. That is it. There's nothing else to you. While your power does help you in other cases, like getting around the map a little bit quicker, that's pretty much it. You can get some information when, you know, Feral Frenzying some of these survivors, and if you do miss, you are penalized as well for that. Legion is just one of those killers that I don't know why anybody would play. I really don't see it. Back in the days with some of the add-ons, you know, Legion was basically a no-skill killer that got rid of any survivor, such as Frank's Mixtape and Deep Wound Study. That was way back in the days. Now, Legion is nowhere near that point. Legion is just one of those killers that you play if you want to suffer. It's like playing Dark Souls with just punching the whole time. I'm sorry, but Legion just isn't up there for me. Legion is in the D tier. I just can never figure out this power or how this could help you in any chases, etc. In certain rare occasions, like if you manage to, you know, run some good add-ons and maybe some good perks too, and hit all 4 survivors at the beginning of the trial, get the pressure going, everyone decides to mend, and then everyone decides to heal for whatever reason, maybe then you can catch them off guard and knock them down, but that's never how your games go. Legion is in the D tier, sadly, and that's where they're going to be for a very long time. I was really expecting some Legion changes in this mid-chapter patch. I'm not sure when you're watching this, but the patch that was supposed to come out was 5.5.0, if I'm not mistaken. We didn't get any of those changes, so until that does happen, Legion will be one of the worst killers in the game, in my opinion, putting them in the D tier. Plague is next on the list, and Plague is one of the better killers. Now, with the add-on changes that were introduced. You can now use your power in a broad array of ways. You can use it to just puke on survivors, get them injured, and then knock them down, or you can use interactables such as generators to give you crazy amount of infection times, and you don't even need to puke on them anymore. Most survivors refuse to heal as well against the plague, and unlike the Legion where refusing to heal does nothing, with the plague, it's actually pretty bad, because if they run an apple or something along the line of that, or just use the corrupt that spawns at the beginning, they can easily knock you down, and this snowball potential is crazy. Once you get someone knocked down, you can easily get multiple people knocked down using your power very quickly. This can completely negate loops or vaults or anything because of the range, and it's very forgiving as well. And once they're in their corrupted state, there isn't much that a survivor could do if spotted. There are certain tiles that if you run it and cut it very good, you might be able to escape, but with the 60 seconds, it's very hard to avoid. Unlike someone like Myers who only has to just knife and be precise with it, the Blight can literally spit her vomit anywhere and easily get you down. Now, she doesn't obviously have a lot of map pressure, but you don't need crazy amount of map pressure when you can constantly keep people injured at different generators for a prolonged period of time. As soon as you head over there, you pretty much can get them down. Not to mention, if you are in your corrupted phase and someone's on the hook, you become a fantastic defensive player, easily interrupting their actions if they're going for the save and you are incorrupt, or getting both of them back down very easily. With multiple people grouped up, her power just shines, and in individual chases, her power shines with how quickly you can easily, just vomit on someone, get them injured, and then continue your chase quickly and get them out of the game. And then, not to mention, your infection also spreads to other survivors, so that does help. Plague, in my opinion, is a high B tier killer. I wouldn't necessarily put her in the A tier because I feel like that's a little bit more reserved for some of the stronger killers that have really good map pressure as well. Like, let's say hypothetically somehow they made it that she can teleport, she would be almost even S tier in my opinion. But we'll put her in high B for now. I think Plague is one of the stronger killers in the game, pretty underrated in my opinion, and if played well with the right add-ons can lead to some crazy detrimental games for the survivors. The Ghostface is next on the list, and Ghostface ain't too much of a bad killer. You can get some pretty good plays coming on. Just like the Wraith, if you come into the game, you can get that sneaky advantage on some of the survivors where leaning through cracks or leaning through corners and getting their gauge to go really high, you can then get a generator grab on them. You can get multiple survivors ready to be exposed at any given point during the game, or you can even expose that survivor and get a quick down on them. And this is pretty good. You can 99 people, and basically if you see them the next time, catch them a little bit off guard when they're not at a loop or anything like that, you can use your stalking power and get them out of there. But besides that, that is pretty much it. For me, Ghostface is just what Myers should have been, but just a little bit better. You can also crouch around, which can help in certain situations if you're trying to be more stealthy and you're trying to make survivors not kick you out of your power. That's also another downside to survivors, just being able to kick you out of your power so easily, with that power just being atrocious when it comes down to the consistency of it. Sometimes it works phenomenally, and I can't say words, by the way. Sometimes it works perfectly, and survivors aren't able to kick you out your power, and when they actively are looking at you, they are. Sometimes it works in your favor where they can't kick you out of your power at all, and sometimes it works in the opposite way where they are not even looking at you when you get kicked out of your power. Because of this inconsistency, it makes it difficult for me to play someone like Ghostface, just because you never know what Ghostface you're going to get based on the survivors. Now, some of the add-ons that he has as well are a little bit better, such as the pen, etc., and they could help you out in certain situations. But realistically, that is pretty much it. You are just a standard M1 killer that can lead to the potential of a more scary chase where survivors are exposed, and typically during these times, survivors just, run to the fundamentals, drop the pallets, go through vaults, etc., and you typically prioritize that one survivor as well because they are exposed, giving the other survivors time to work on generators and do their thing. Once you get that survivor down, you basically have to repeat these chases, and you're just your M1 killer. And some Ghostfaces try to stalk you while in chase, and this can potentially lead to some upside, but then again, you're just a standard M1 killer that has to go through loops, go through vaults, and you have no map pressure whatsoever. So that is going to put the Ghostface in the C tier for me. Ghostface is, I always had a good feeling about Ghostface, and I feel like he can be good, but for now he is in the C tier because there isn't too much that he can do against a good, well-coordinated group of survivors, or if anyone's just decently good at looping, because your chase will probably last 30 seconds on average, and then by the time that your power is halfway done, you pick him up, you try to get him to a hook, and then your power is done. You have to re-wait for it, and then people will obviously be aware that you're around, so they'll be keeping an eye on you, trying to kick you out of your power. And there's been multiple matches where I go against the Ghostface and never even get exposed once. Next on the list is the Demogorgon. Demogorgon, in my opinion, is one of the most balanced killers in the game. He has everything that a killer needs to be a decent enough killer. With the sense of his map pressure, he can, you know, place his portals, go through them, and come out and have that good map pressure. This is countered by survivors digging up his portals and, you know, sealing it away. And this can also be countered if survivors decide not to do that, and then your portals are in terrible positions where there's no benefit to you. He also has the killer instinct to know if anyone is working on his portals, and some of the add-ons also do this as well, so it can give you a little bit more information. He also has his shredder attack that does help him in basic looping situations. If someone's running to a pallet or a vault, you can easily break the pallet or catch them on the vault or catch them on the pallet before they drop it, and in those senses it does work quite nice. Besides that, that is pretty much the Demogorgon, just well balanced. There is counterplay to him where you can avoid his shred attack, you can fake him out. His zoning isn't as good as someone like the Huntress because it's not as scary. You can easily avoid it a lot easier. So for that reason, you know, Demogorgon is just in the solid C tier. I would put him in the high C tier of anything. I think he's just one of those balanced killers that if played well and you get the good map, you're on the right add-ons, you can do pretty good. And if the match just doesn't go in your way, it doesn't go in your way. That's just how I feel about him. I think he is just one of the more balanced killers that, you know, he's just all right, essentially. On the opposite, we have the Oni. Oni is definitely not just all right. That boy is strong. Oni has everything that a good killer needs as well, but more. He has a little bit more. Let's just compare him to the Demogorgon for the fun of it. He has the same ability to keep this map pressure, but instead of teleporters that you have to stand on the teleporter and then go through it, and then when you come out, you know, and the survivors have the potential to get rid of this, Oni is the opposite. He gets rewarded for doing your job right. You hit a survivor, you collect their blood, you now go into your Blood Fury, which is a very forgiving, basically Hillbilly chainsaw that you can run around any corner, anything, bump into anything, and continue to go and apply this map pressure. From there, you have your weapon that can one-shot down survivors. So survivors are pretty scared of this. They will easily drop pallets prematurely. Even if they make it to a vault, you can easily just cut around the loop and just walk and chase them down and hit them with this brutal attack. This forces the survivors to heal as well because they don't want to grant you your power, but by doing so, they're wasting time with boons and, you know, healing. This is a little bit easier to do, but still, you are wasting time healing. This gives the Oni adequate time to just recharge his power, repeat the process, and carry on. And it is much more forgiving than someone like the Hillbilly because you don't need to worry about maps or survivors, you know, cutting quick corners because you can easily just choose not to hit, turn around, and continue to chase them. And typically when survivors are, you know, cutting corners quickly or going around, and something like the Hillbilly, it's very devastating considering how long it takes you to rev up your chainsaw, and then it has to be super precise, and then, like, if you hit a wall, it's not so good. With the Oni, that doesn't really matter. You know, you can just walk a survivor down and even opt in to just smack them normally. And again, you just get rewarded for good gameplay. He is insanely quick, insanely fast. He destroys loops if played correctly, and you get rewarded for doing your job correctly. Oni is in the A tier for me. With some of the add-ons that he has, he is just an absolute monster. I don't even want to talk about Top Knot and other things that he has. He is just beautiful, you know, making your power even more effective, granting you more blood, things like that. Just put him way above any other killer in my opinion. He's in the A tier. He deserves to be there. He is so strong. And yeah, I feel like a lot of people don't play Oni anymore. They forget how good he really is. I don't remember the last time I personally have seen an Oni, but my god, is he good. The Deathslinger is next on the list, and since the nerf, the Deathslinger has never been as good as he was. Now you have to take your time to aim in your gun, and you have to be very precise with your shots, as you always need to be, but you can't just be as reckless as just quick scoping, aiming in, boom, and reeling in and hitting a survivor. Now you have to actually aim. If someone's running like in a tiny place, you can't just quickly aim and try to get the shot off. You have to be a little bit more precise. This really brings a big drawback to the Deathslinger, in my opinion. They also changed his terror radius, which, you know, you could have used it to sneak up on survivors and get some crazy shots on him. You can't really do that anymore with his terror radius being much larger. On top of that, he is still just a 110 killer, so when it comes down to M1 chases, he's not the best. He does still have one of the best one-on-one potentials in the game, don't get me wrong. You know, if you're out in the open or if you're running to a pallet and he aims in and grabs you and pulls you in, there isn't much that you can do. Obviously, you have to be very precise and accurate with the Deathslinger in order to get this power to work, but with some skill, that will, you know, completely get that out the way. You wouldn't even need to worry about it if you're playing him very well. With the changes, however, to him, I feel like it's a lot more difficult to pull off some of these shots. There's some good add-ons that can help you with the reel-in times and reload times, making your job a little bit more efficient, but you do still have to put a little bit more in and be a little bit more patient, essentially, to help with this. This obviously helps out the newer players a lot more on the survivor side, so they don't have to worry about just the Deathslinger aiming in, quick scoping them and reeling them, and there isn't much that you can do, but I feel like this also draws a lot from his power. Back in the days, Deathslinger was a decent killer, and now I feel like he is still a decent killer, but they just made him a lot more tough to play. For that reason, I'm going to put him in this C tier. I feel like Deathslinger used to be one of those killers that was really, really good, but not so much anymore. He just isn't at that potential, and I feel like now that survivors really know how to counter him too, it's very easy to go against him. You simply just dodge left or right, and it's very difficult for the Deathslinger to then hit you. If you do play Deathslinger, you know, phenomenally, and you manage to still hit these shots, if a survivor prematurely drops a pallet or decides to vault or anything along the lines of that, you only put them into the deep wounds effect, and then you still have to actually M1 hit them, which then prolongs the chase. Of course, you can cut off these chases very well, but then you lack in a sense of map pressure because you can't bolt across the map to do anything else, and the 110 really is a hindrance in that sense, and you can't really sneak up on the survivors as well. So Deathslinger is in the C tier in my opinion. Pyramid Head is next on the list, and even with the changes that they made to Pyramid Head, I still think that he is one of the stronger killers in the game. You can easily put your sword in the ground and zone survivors to certain locations if they are running to a vault, for example, and your sword's in the ground. You can expect them not to go through the vault. If they do, you get the easy hit. If they don't, you can take it out. Even though this is a longer time to do so, you can still get the hit on them. If you're running in places like the shack, you can easily just leave your trail of torment on the floor, get information when any survivor runs through that, and then obviously save a lot of times just forcing them into the cage. His power works phenomenal when it comes down to the sense of, you know, making your chases much shorter and helping you in chases, because survivors now have to make a split-second decision on if they want to go to a pallet or a vault, and if you aim precisely or you have some good add-ons or perks, you can easily just knock these survivors down. He also has some great add-ons that increase the range or increase the duration of the Rise of Judgment, etc., and it works pretty damn well. Now, obviously, he doesn't have map pressure like I've been saying throughout this entire video, but he makes up for that in the sense that you can easily just push survivors into a cage and toss them across the map. This forces other survivors to either go really far or in some rare cases really close, and it is still beneficial because you can easily kill a survivor, saving you some time that you would otherwise use going, picking up the survivor, walking to a hook, putting them down. So in those senses, it does help. If you're playing against an altruistic team too and someone dies in a pallet or something like that, which happens more often than you think, and everyone rushes over to get the survive, or to get the save, I should say, and you just put them into the cage, then you got a bunch of survivors around you that you can easily knock down. Now, of course, this is still quite rare, and let's talk about regular chases. The power still works pretty good. If you can manage to predict where survivors are going or understand the mind games they are trying to perform on you, you can easily get some good hits in. This will force survivors to, you know, run in obscure ways that can easily just get them down because you don't need to use your Rights of Judgment, and it works super, super well. I think Pyramid Head is one of the better killers in the game if played correctly. He gives you information, he can, you know, easily push survivors across the map to do different things, and he forces a little bit of zoning in that sense of the survivors. I'm gonna put him in the A tier. I think he's pretty good. I think once you understand how to use his power well and how to utilize him, you can really shine with his power, even though he lacks in some senses, and some of the add-ons that he has makes it quite nice and, you know, not super annoying or super strong, but just better in that sense. The Bloody Blight is next on the list, and I just like to say that I was one of the first people to say that the Blight was goddamn OP. I was one of the few people when his POV was still like and people didn't even want to give him a shot, that was like, Blight is good, give it a try. And we used to be really good with the Blight. I'm still decent with the Blight, but there's so much players that I see that just shine so well with the potential of the Blight. Shout out to McLean too for making such a beautiful killer and the entire team. Blight is just everything that you would want in a killer. You know, he has phenomenal chase potential, easily knocking down survivors. You know, you can cut corners easily if you know how to play him, completely negating loops and vaults, and if the survivor does drop the pallet, just break the pallet with your weapon. On top of that, he has tremendous map pressure, moving across the map at crazy speeds, especially with add-ons that can make him even faster. Then you got things like the ring and you know, the dead rats and all that stuff, and it just makes him phenomenal. You know, Blight is a fantastic killer. He completely negates your chases. Against a really good Blight, there isn't much you can do in any of those chases, and of course he has his just regular M1 potential, just chasing you down and gunning you down. Then with some of the good add-ons that he has, like the ring to recharge all of his rush tokens, or the add-ons that make it so that you go down on his last hit, it just becomes super good. You know, he's one of those unstoppable killers, and the snowballing is just tremendous with him. Not to mention that, as I said, you can get crazy map pressure. Put someone on the hook, you can easily, you know, fly across the map, go straight to the other side in literally no time, and continue that pressure that's going on. He is just phenomenal, and I don't think there's much more that needs to be said about the Blight. Blight is S tier, in my opinion. He is strong, and I just respect Blight players. They're good. You know, there's a lot of ongoing debates about Blight and things like that. I just think he's really good. And I've always said this too, so not a bandwagoner, but I just really like the Blight. Twins are next on the list, and sadly, Twins add-ons got nerfed for what? I don't know. I can't tell you why Behavior decided to nerf some of the add-ons that were never used, like Stale Biscuit. I don't know if those changes are going to be final. The future people watching this video can tell me. But Twins are still pretty good. You know, they have crazy good potential when it comes down to Victor and Charlotte just being a crazy good duo. You know, I see players that play these characters to their maximum potential, like my really good friend Linksy. She just knocks down survivors so easily, keeps the pressure up so well, and Twins just have so much. You know, you have the sense of map pressure where Charlotte can be on one side of the map, Victor can be on the other side. Victor also has, you know, no detection besides his growl and yelling of where he's at, and if you're accurate with him, there isn't much that you can do to avoid him besides maybe luckily dodging him or going through a vault, and even then, Victor can still pounce and get you with things like Toy's sword. It just makes it much easier to do your job as well. You can even put him next to a hook, and then with Charlotte, pick someone up and then put that person on the hook. Whenever they come there, you know that they're right there. You can go back. Not to mention the absolute slugging potential that you can do. I know a lot of people don't like doing this, but they still end up doing it, and people hate going against this, but it just makes it so easy just to knock a survivor down, go to another survivor, either get Victor, you know, to pounce on them and then they have to get him off, or you can get them down if they're already injured. So that is just there, and it's just a complete snowballing cycle that happens, because then everybody runs to go save them. By the time you walk over there, you just call Victor out, you know, at a loop or at a vault or whatever the case is, completely negates that, and it's just strong. The add-ons make them stronger, and they're a good killer. The Twins will be in the A tier for me. I don't think there's much debate about it. They're annoying to play against in certain situations, but I think Twins are just one of those killers that stand out above the rest as good killers in the game. I see the potential with them. I know a lot of people may not see the potential of how good Twins are, but they really can be dominating in the right hands. Next on the list is Nemesis. Nemesis is a pretty damn good killer in my opinion. Nemesis to me feels like a buffed up Demogorgon, essentially. Let's start off with the zombies that patrol around the map. Now, they do toss in a little bit of an RNG factor, and with some of the add-ons, you can make them faster, make them a little bit more viable. They even buffed up some of the ultra rares to be a little bit better as well. Zombies don't do too much for you, but they still can do things. They give you information on where survivors are at, and if in the right location, they can force survivors to move off their generators or move off a certain area of the map. If they already are infected with the T-virus and a zombie is potentially by a loop, they can't utilize that loop, and it could zone them into a specific direction, a little bit more rare than using your power or getting other things going in the game, but it's still a potential for something like that to happen. That alone gives you a little bit more in the sense of map pressure, where it's not as good as someone like the Blight, as we just mentioned, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. You know, it's better than nothing, is what I should say. Then you have your tentacle power. At first, you know, it's all right. You know, you're walking around and you can infect survivors, but literally if you use something like Marvin's Blood or anything along the lines, which I believe is also getting nerfed, you can easily level up your power. Upon doing that, your power becomes quite a good weapon. Not only does it break pallets extremely fast and breakable walls, which helps so much, but it's almost a guaranteed hit if a survivor is at any loop that you can see them over. All you need to do is to be fairly accurate with this, similar to the Huntress, and it gives you maximum zoning potential as well. If they decide to vault over a window or vault over a pallet and you just pull out your power and hit them, that's it. They're gonna get injured, and while you do need to get 3 hits on them, you're gonna get 3 hits regardless. It's gonna happen, and it just works in the chase aspect very, very well. On top of that, like I mentioned, the zombies could then toss it into the mix, and like I said, he's just a buffed up Demogorgon, and I'm gonna have to put him in the high B tier. I think he deserves to be there. He's one of those more killers that are like a little bit more on the strong side, but still not overbearing to go up against. You're never gonna be like, oh my god, it's the goddamn Nemesis. What am I gonna do? Well, maybe some of you, but for the average player, I don't think that's a feeling you're going to be getting, but you still will be like, all right, he's still a stronger killer. I can't just completely dismiss him like that clown. But yeah, I like him. I think his potential in chases really shines because you can easily get hits with M1 or with your tentacle strike, and it works quite well. And then the zombies do add a little bit of that factor of, you know, forcing survivors off or in different directions, etc. And you can charge your power up on them as well. With some of the add-ons, you can even enhance this some more, and it's pretty damn nice. So he is in the B tier. Moving on our list is the Trickster. I'm not a fan of the Trickster. I don't have fun playing as or against a Trickster. I'm not gonna let that make my decision biased or anything like that, but Trickster is just one of those killers that I just can't seem to figure out on either side. You know, I feel like Trickster has fantastic one-on-one abilities. You know, you use your knives, you know, there's not much a survivor can do. If they're in an open field, they'll be completely destroyed. If they are in a loop, you can slowly but surely wither them down, toss your knives at them, and then get them down. And there isn't too much that you can do as a survivor, especially at certain loops where he can easily see you. He'll easily get you down, and if you are running away from that loop now, he can easily just toss some more knives and get you right about, if not completely injured. Now, that's where most of the good things stop. You know, with the good add-ons that you can run on him, you know, it does help a little bit more, but that's about it, realistically. If you're on maps that, you know, have good walls, think of the Treatment Vader, think of Badham Preschool or Lampkin Lane, things like that. It's much more difficult to get his power to fully work and for the knives to actually hit the survivors. If you're playing against a decent enough survivor, you know, they go around the loops, they don't really need to drop pallets, or they can prematurely, and then you have to go completely around, and then if they're running through where you don't get line of sight, it makes it a lot more difficult. But of course, if they do get line of sight and they do manage to catch you, they will quickly get you down. But that's it. That's about it. He doesn't really have any map pressure in the sense that he can run across the map to knock someone else down. And sure, he has his main event ability that, you know, it always seems to happen at the worst time possible. There is a bigger time frame now, so if you do find a survivor and you manage to catch him out the open, you can get an easy down, or if someone's going for the save, you can get multiple downs if used to the maximum potential. But that's about it. that's really it. I think he is the new Legion, essentially, of what the old school Frank's mixtape Legion is, where your chase that you're going to be getting into, you will get that survivor down. Sometimes it might take longer than normal if the survivor is good at looping, but by the time you manage to get that person down, a few gens are going to be popped. You're going to walk over there, that chase is going to be prolonged, and then of course, you know, if they loop you or do decently well, there isn't much that you can do, and then that's pretty much it. Maybe I'm just not playing him good enough, but I haven't really seen anybody play him to the maximum capacity in that case, if that is the case. So for me, I'm going to put the Trickster in the C tier, just not one of those killers that I think is that good, and I think they can potentially be better towards the future. You open the box, and now we are ranking him on the tier list. Pinhead is next on the list, and Pinhead is a pretty decent killer. I think Pinhead is pretty damn good, actually. Pinhead has a few things going for them. First of all, when you spawn into the match, you know, you have your configuration box. If survivors go to it, you can quickly just teleport to them, initiate a chase, and you'll also pick up the box, which gives you information on where everybody is at. So that's the first pro of him. You then carry on, you go to your chase, and then, you know, chain hunt will be activated, and all the chains will grab the survivors if you're lucky, and it will basically make them slower, and you will eventually catch up to them. You can also use your individual possessed chain and, you know, stop certain loops or certain vaults if you manage to hit the survivor, which in most cases it does seem to work, and with some of the add-ons it makes that power even more deadly than it already is. And if you manage to catch a survivor with that, you can easily just completely negate them from going to a vault or pallet, forcing them to either slow vault, slow drop the pallet, whatever the case is, and they're forced to break those chains and to tug them off. If you're really good, like I've seen some players do this, you can actually pinpoint where the box is going to spawn, or you can even use the add-ons to know where the box is going to spawn. Use that to your advantage, gain a lot of information because you will know where all the survivors are at, and then continue with that going to other chases, etc. If survivors also decide not to go for the box, you know, that's really not good either, because then everyone's going to be in chain hunt. They can't do anything. They can't work on generators. They can't heal each other. They can't break any of your totems, whatever the case may be, because the chains will constantly be grabbing them over and over and over. So they have to go to the box, giving you an opportunity to teleport to them and then to continue your chase. So boil down, that gives you some good map pressure, essentially, which isn't actually like walking around and making it to those survivors, but you are getting map pressure in the sense that they have to find a box, and if they don't, they will be penalized for it. And if you find a box, you will get rewarded for it. And then you have your possessed chain, which then helps you in your chases, and with the right add-ons, you know, this can be even, you know, crazy strong. You know, you can even injure survivors with the ultra rares. So for me, I'm going to be putting the Pinhead in the B tier. I think they're a really good killer. This is the high-end B tier as well. I think they have a lot of potential, and with the right add-ons, they can become even stronger in the right hands. It takes a lot of practice to get good with them, but I feel like once you get over that curve, you can be unstoppable. More often than not, I find myself in games where if we don't prioritize the box, it becomes super difficult to go against them, and if we do get the box, then you got to be ready to go for that chase. So yeah, that's where I'm going to rank them, which takes us to our final killer on the list. It's been a good video so far, and I hope you guys are indeed enjoying our last killer, the newest killer on the list, the Artist. Where do we start with the Artist? The Artist is a beautiful killer. I really like what they've created. When I first played the Artist on the PTB, I was a little bit bored, to be honest. I didn't really know how to utilize my powers, a little confusing, and I slowly but surely got into it when it fully came into the game and realized the potential of how good the Artist really is. And I know I said I was going to talk about perks. My god, Scorched Hook plus Gearhead, or not Gearhead, what's the perk called, where the if they step off the generator, it becomes Corrupted Block. I forgot. You guys can correct me in the comments. Wow, it is just dominating, but we're not going to talk about that. Anyways, let's talk about the kit of what the Artist has to offer. First of all, you have your crows. You can spawn up to 3 of these dire crows throughout you know, the trial or whenever it recharges and you have them. This is fabulous for zoning. If anyone's going to a vault, if they're going to shack, if they're going to any pallets, anything like that, you can easily put your dire crows up, set them up, and if any survivor is running in the direction, you can summon them and easily get a hit if they are close enough. If they're not close enough, you will get the crows to go over their head, and if you do only 1 or 2, you'll have enough time to put 1 crow down, or maybe 2, depending on how much you have, summon the crow again, and get a quick injure of their health state down. Very nice, very awesome. You can also use this power to get information at any point during the trial. You can put 3 birds at once, figure out where all the survivors are at, where they're working on the generators, and then boom, you got information literally at any point. You're hooking a survivor, you want some information where your next chase is being, do it like that. You are, you know, just walking around, you can't find anybody, boom, do it like that. You want to know if anyone's on your totem? Boom, put your crows out, send them. And then after that, if they refuse to take off the crows, which nobody really does, but if you're close enough or you know, just still deciding to commit to a generator, whatever the case may be, you can then put another set of crows and injure them. So you can basically get injuries through walls at literally any point. If you manage to just send 1 crow, hypothetically, all the way across the map, and then you set 3 more crows, and you quickly just spawn all of them, you potentially could get someone down all the way across the map, giving you insane amount of pressure. You also, as I said, have massive zoning ability, massive looping potential to just cut them off, cut vaults off, cut loops off, because everybody is too afraid to run in front of crows. Even if they tried to bait you with the crows, you can use multiple crows at a specific loop to get them with the crows over their head and swarming them, and then you can easily just zone them, knock them down, or use your crows. With the add-ons, man, it just becomes even nicer. You know, there's some good add-ons that you can run for the Artist that makes her power a lot better. And all in all, Artist is just a nice killer all around. I'm going to be putting her in the, man, low A, high B. I'm not too sure because I haven't really seen survivors adapt too much to them yet or play against them too much to formulate good strategies. We'll put her in low A for now. I think she's one of the better killers in the game. She is really fun to play as. I'm not too sure how it is playing against. I don't know if survivors are having a difficult time or finding it a little bit frustrating, but I think she's just really good. She has everything that a good killer needs. She has basically infinite map pressure at any point and information, which helps so much. And she's just a beautiful killer all in all. And I think they've done a decent job with her. And we'll see what ends up happening in the future and what how this plays out, but that is pretty much where I feel that she's at. And that's it. That takes us to the end. We have talked about every single killer. We've been here for a little over an hour, so thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy. I'm sure there's a lot of people that disagree with me. I'm sure there's people that agree with me. I would love to hear your comments in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think I was completely out of my mind with some of these killers and what I've been saying? Do you think I was in my rights? And, you know, I was like, yeah, that was pretty good. Let me know. I'm curious down below. Again, thank you guys so much for all of the support on the recent videos. You guys have been killing it. More Jeopardy DVD is coming up. If you want to see some of your favorite content creators in those, tweet them. Let them know. I would love to work with more other content creators. I just have a difficult time reaching out and picking people because so much people do want to join, and then I'm also pretty shy as is. So let me know who you guys want to see in the future ones. We're also going to be doing different episodes. Wheel of Fortune, The Chase, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. We're doing them all. We're doing them all. So stay tuned for that. That's going to wrap up this tier list. Thank you again, Ewin, for sponsoring this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Comment more on what you want to see, what you thought about it, etc. Subscribe for some more daily Dead by Daylight content. Share it with your friends as well. As always, I'm the King. I did my crown to you guys, and we'll see you in the fog.